And this is going to be offering you 4 different trick-taking games that all play quite a bit different from each other. I'm going to be starting with the one that I am most interested in, and this one is called Bacon. And this plays 3 to 6 players. It takes about 30 to 90 minutes to play. And this one is probably the least accurate to a traditional trick-taking game because your goal in this game is not to accumulate the most tricks. Instead, it's to try and get rid of all of your cards first. But there is a little bit more to that, and I think it's really interesting, and I will come back to it in a bit when I get to how the scoring works. And in this game, you're going to be playing as teams, so not only do you want to get rid of all your cards as fast as possible, you also want your teammates to get rid of theirs. Each round starts with the lead player playing a card or combination of cards to the center of the table, and there are a whole bunch of different combinations of cards that you can play, but then the next player to the left of you can choose to play a similar combo but higher, or choose to pass if they're not able to play any of their cards. This continues around the table with players choosing to play whatever cards that they can, but anytime that a player plays cards into the middle of the table and then all the other players pass, that's going to trigger the end of the round, and then that player becomes the lead player for the following round. And the rounds continue like this until a single player is able to get rid of all their cards. And the interesting thing about this is that only that player's team is going to be able to score points for this round. So once they've got rid of all their cards, they've locked in the fact that only their team can score victory points, but the amount of victory points you get that round depends on the order of the remaining players getting rid of all their cards. If your team members are able to get rid of all their cards before any of the opposing players do, that's going to get you the most points within a round. But each time an opposing team member is able to get rid of all their cards before your team members, that's going to reduce the total amount of points that you can get. This means that you don't only care about the number of cards you have in your hand, but you also care about the number of cards that your teammates have, because you want to try and get everyone to lose all their cards first, but then also as quickly as possible in succession. And the game does offer you a fancy trick to try and help out your teammates, because anytime that you win a round and you become the lead player, you can actually choose to pass off that role to one of your teammates. So if you see someone with a ton of cards left in their hand and you're not concerned about the other team getting rid of all their cards first, you can always pass off the lead role to that teammate so that they can play some of their cards and get them out of their hand. And of course, after a few rounds and the end of the game is triggered, it's the team with the most victory points that wins the game. And the next trick-taking game offered in this campaign is called Pies, and this plays 3 to 5 players and takes about 20 minutes to play. And this one does play more traditionally to your typical trick-taking game, but it does add a few unique twists. In this game, players are going to be trying to collect combinations of ingredients in order to prepare the tastiest pies to score them the most victory points. There's going to be 6 tricks per round, with each player contributing 1 card to each trick, and then each of these tricks is going to be resolved following normal trick-taking rules. But the difference here is that the player that wins the trick does not take that entire trick into their supply as victory points like most trick-taking games. Instead, each of the players is going to be ranked based on the highest value cards that they contributed. Players will then be able to draft a card from that trick in the ranked order, and players are basically trying to gather the appropriate cards that they need in order to create different sets in order to score the most victory points and make the tastiest pies. Some of the cards will also have special abilities that you can take advantage of as well, and whichever player is lowest in the rank will also get an additional plum card added to their supply. This is just a bonus card, but it doesn't come with any special abilities. Some of the abilities will allow you to steal cards from the other players, while other abilities can help protect you from that. But if you're able to take the appropriate ingredients and create a pie, that will lock those cards away and secure those victory points for you at the end of the game. And of course, at the end of the game, the player with the most victory points wins the game. And the third game offered in this campaign is called Lunar, and this plays 2 to 4 players and takes about 20 minutes to play. And this is another trick-taking game that does play more traditional to trick-taking games. But the thing that makes this one a little bit different is that you're not just going to be playing 1 card per trick. Instead, you're going to be playing 2, because this game offers players with 2 different types of cards. There are your moon cards, and then there are your animal cards. And whenever you're going to play cards into a trick, you're going to be combining these together in order to form the value and suit of the card that you're going to be contributing to that trick. This means that players will have a lot more options at the start of the round than they will at the end, because you're going to be using up those cards and depleting the cards that you have left. This means that you're going to have to decide which cards you want to save for yourself later in order to try and maximize the amount of tricks that you'll win overall. Players are going to be gaining points each round based on the number of cards that they acquired, as well as the number of tricks that they're able to win. The game ends once a player reaches 30 points, and then that player wins the game. And the last game offered in this campaign is called Mori, and this plays 3 to 5 players. It takes about 20 minutes to play, and I personally think the artwork on this one looks really, really cool, so I'm sad to say that I couldn't really find any info on how this game plays. But what I do know is that this game is going to be incorporating dice in addition to the cards, allowing players with different ways to manipulate their hand and form different tricks for them to find their way to the best possible score. But if you're interested in any of these, or if you just love trick-taking games because they are pretty awesome, you can find links to this campaign in the description below, and of course you can click that notify me button if you want to get notified once it launches.